Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EITC live broadcast series. This is our 16th episode in a 16-part series entitled EQ and You. And today we're going to be talking about well-being. And I'm David Corey, and I'm here with my colleague, Mr. Kim Cairns from the Emotional Intelligence Training Company. And we're here to chat about a really interesting facet of the EQ model, which was originally based on the work of Dr. Reuven Bar-On. This well-being indicator, as it's called, is a bit of an indication of how things are going in one's life, in one's work, in one's life, and with respect to EQ. And it gives us a bit of insight into that sense of well-being that people are really after. So let's kick this off, Kim, and maybe talk about what well-being, what it means. What does well-being mean to you, for example?
Well, it's a broad topic, Dave. I mean, I think well-being to me is it's important to keep in mind that it's not just being happy all the time. To me, we're not going to be happy all the time. So there's a part of well-being that's recognizing that there's going to be struggle, there's going to be challenge in life, there's going to be down times, and that's just part of our life process. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. I think too often we get into this notion in conversations with people that I want to be happier, and thinking that that's some kind of achievable plateau that's going to be consistent. And in reality, that's not going to happen. So I think also with regard to well-being, it's about recognizing when I am in a really good place, when life is flowing, when I'm actually being, and just enjoying those moments. And also, I think some time of reflection about what has contributed to that feeling. What has gone on around and in me, and how has that impacted how I'm feeling? So it's that ongoing assessment of how I've ended up in those places, and recognizing that I can recreate those in the future too. So again, it's just that ongoing process of self-awareness and the beauty of the model.
Well, I want to emphasize your point about being happy all the time. This is, of course, not life. Life is a mixture of difficulties, struggles, pain, difficulties, struggles, pains, and with moments of well-being and happiness. And really, what we're talking about is not the kind of happiness which is that sort of what we call transitory happiness, that sort of what ebbs and flows throughout the course of any particular day. But we're talking about a baseline of contentment, of satisfaction, that things are going the way we want them to go, and that's more what we mean when we talk about the happiness and well-being that's measured by the EQI. In fact, maybe it'd be worth mentioning that the well-being indicator is as a result of taking a piece out of the original model. That piece measured happiness. And again, that kind of happiness that is more like a baseline of happiness in any given period of time in one's life. And so those happiness items, that is the statements that related to one's happiness and well-being, really did a good job. They were good. So let's not get rid of them completely, but let's perhaps move them into a different place on the model indicator of how things are going. And we like to joke in the course, as you know, Kim, that it answers the Dr. Phil question, which is, how's that working for you? And you know, we want the answer to that question to be, it's working well, which is that indicator that we do have a sense of well-being. Let's talk about some of the highest correlating EQ factors with well-being, Kim, starting with self-regard. You know, this is this is there are actually 4 EQ competencies which highly correlate with one's well-being, one of which is self-regard. So how we view ourselves, and again, I think we come into the world, and I say again because I say this often, I believe we come into the world fully equipped with everything we need, and then it's about all the messages that get sent to us from the world, and we get battered around. And so that can affect how we view ourselves, don't you think, Kim?
Well, most definitely, Dave. And again, so important, I think, to point out the notion of self-regard from the model perspective. We're not just talking about self-esteem here. Self-esteem has been a phrase that's generated a lot of energy and a lot of different approaches over the last couple of decades. But with self-regard, it is, you know, my capacity to be able to take a look at myself and recognize strengths, recognize my skill sets, be familiar and a bit more precise with what those components actually are. And so recognizing them and acknowledging them, and at the same time recognizing that there are opportunities for growth in how I'm operating as well. So it's the joining of those two things. It's not either or. And I think, you know, for me, one of the things that I like about the well-being indicator aspect of the reports is it is a blending of those 4 competencies that yields the well-being indicator results. And what we have found is that this can be a great place to start for people to talk about the weaving of the competencies. So they get a sense that they're not separate and distinct, but are definitely woven together. So, you know, the 4, let's just identify them now, are self-regard, optimism, interpersonal relationships, and self-actualization. So it's an opportunity to explore how those weave together and how that impacts how I'm feeling in the world. So be able to focus on those 4 as a starting point for some growth in that area of well-being.
Right. Yeah, I think that the idea that interpersonal relationships is one of those 4 is really illuminating, I think, for people, particularly for people who maybe tend to stay on their own more, tend to sort of keep things inside, tend to maybe not be the most expressive to others. This idea of interpersonal relationships as a critical part of well-being is an important learning that we really need to reach out. That we don't have to do anything alone, that nothing that has ever been done in the history of the world that is great was achieved alone, that we're really designed as social beings. We're designed for connection, for relationship, for dialogue, and it's a great reminder for people that one of the ways that we can increase our happiness is by developing our relationships. And people say, well, I do have relationships, but they're terrible relationships, or I'm around these toxic people, or whatever it is. And really, it's about finding your people, right? You know, that moment when you find people that you have a lot in common with, that you relate to, that you enjoy, that you can talk about anything with. Those are your people, and it's finding your people and having relationships with them, and feeling worthy and deserving enough to have those great relationships with others. That's the self-regard piece, and self-regard and relationships, they fit together absolutely. And then, of course, there's the self-actualization, which is about involving ourselves in things that have meaning and a sense of purpose for us. And you know, we've talked about self-actualization several times in our couple of video series that we've done now. And if we don't feel good about ourselves, we allow ourselves to stay in roles that don't have meaning and purpose, Kim. And what's that like when we meet someone, Kim, who we just know that they're struggling with self-actualization. They just don't have that meaning and purpose. And it might be a really cool job from lots of perspectives that they have, but for them, it's just not it. There's that lack of fit. Talk about that a bit, Kim. What's that like for those folks?
Well, I think, it's interesting when you raise that aspect of self-actualization, Dave. I mean, I think we've both run across people who, from the outside, were appearing very successful in their professional roles, and then made sudden decisions to make a dramatic shift to doing a different thing in their lives. And always interesting to talk to those folks, because I think that that part of self-actualization that was important to them was a reality testing component. Okay, these are my values in life. I'm enjoying what I'm doing here, but at this stage of my life, I want to seek something with more fulfillment, where I'm more fully engaged in it. Yes, I'm really good at being a plumber, but I don't want to stay in that capacity. Yes, I'm a superb courtroom lawyer, and I do get a certain amount of energy out of that. There is fulfillment there. And at this stage in my life, I want to pursue something else. So it's being able to really take a look at, this is my journey, and how am I paddling through my journey at this point? Is it time to alter course a bit? And again, I think that overall sense of well-being comes from being able to adjust course in our life.
Yes.
Again, it's important to have commitment to something. And we can still have commitment and still alter little parts of that direction. So again, it's that ongoing awareness, self-awareness, and assessment of where I'm at with regard to what I want to be doing in life.
And it dramatically affects well-being, don't you think? Just doing the wrong thing. It's like, what am I doing every day? Why am I still doing whatever? And I really, it's really not fulfilling. It doesn't provide that sense of achievement or satisfaction. I feel a bit like I'm spinning my wheels, right? And it's just like that's just not a good place, and I know that many people are in that place, and it's like, well, let's go back to self-regard. Are you worthy and deserving, and are you confident enough to achieve your goals? So what should those goals be then, if they truly align with your values?
Yes.
When we're aligned with our values, boy, that's where we have that sense of well-being, and you and I are fortunate enough to be doing that kind of work that just fits for us. That we look forward to doing our work. Where I don't know that everybody can say that, and it's kind of sad.
Well, when you see a lot of studies that come out, as high as 60 or 70% of people not satisfied in their professional roles, in their working lives, and I think that's alarming, and it's frightening to be in that position, and I think that this is where optimism kicks in.
Absolutely.
If I'm in a place of struggle, if I'm in a working situation that's not meeting my needs, that I'm not feeling good about, knowing that I've, being able to take a look back, actually, and I've been through some other struggles in my life. What did I do there? Okay, now what could I do in this situation? Do I continue to sit in this whirlpool and spin around in my dissatisfaction, or are there opportunities here to exit this whirlpool?
Right.
And recognizing that I have the capacity to be able to do that I've done that before in my life and will do it again.
Well, I think it's also important to point out, Kim, that when we're young, we don't have a lot. We have a sort of a narrower. I don't know. Sometimes we end up in jobs that don't have a lot of inherent, satisfaction and achievement, right? And then it's about seeing that actually what we're doing is leading to something, and that's where the optimism comes in. It's like, if I keep doing this, one day I'll be here. and sort of focusing on that. So it's so interesting that how we view things is critical to our well-being. And if we continue to focus on what's bad, then then our well-being drops, and we don't have that sense of happiness and contentment and satisfaction because we're focused on what's bad about everything. Now, when we shift that and we become, we always talk about this too. The practice of optimism is gratitude. If we become grateful for what we have and grateful for those little things and the pieces that are good, it kind of shifts our mindset. And it's interesting to note where these four factors are found in the model. On the one hand, we've got self-perception, so how we perceive ourselves is critical. On the other, we've got the interpersonal, so that the way we are with others is critical to our well-being. And that Harvard study, the Harvard study about longevity, showing relationships are the single biggest factor in longevity. And then we've got what we do, what we involve ourselves in, that self-actualization piece, again, back to self-perception. And then finally, optimism, which is part of stress management. So we're going to manage our stress better. We're going to have a better sense of well-being when we choose to focus on what's good. I think that's fascinating.
Well, Dave, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about I was thinking about myself and lenses, and it just came to my mind that it is about being able to change our lenses, the frame that we're looking through. And I was just chuckling, thinking, well, here I am. I'm a guy who's a bit older now who uses readers. Never had to use readers before in my life, but I have a variety of lenses and frames to look through, and it's actually a good physical reminder at times for me. And I notice myself doing this. No, I'm going to put on a different set of frames right now, as a physical reminder to shift how I'm viewing something. So again, it's about developing these little cues, these little internal cues for ourselves to be able to shift perspective, lens, observation. Where am I looking at this from? Is this a good place? Is this a productive place to be looking at this issue from? Or is it possible to shift to a different aspect and take a look at it from a different angle? So again, it's that incongruence with my values. And given what I'm facing in terms of a challenge right now, how can I adapt and adjust? Adapting and adjusting, being resilient. And I think that for me, the EQI model is probably one of the most comprehensive ways to develop resilience. And resilience has to do with well-being. It has to do with happiness. It's feeling resilient rather than brittle and trapped. And anything that we can do to feed that is going to take us to good places.
Isn't resilience, Kim, about our ability to maintain well-being? So we talked earlier about certainly it's not reasonable to expect to be in well-being or satisfaction or contentment at all times. But really, resilience is about being able to get back to well-being. So, something comes along, something beyond our control, some life event, some tragedy, crisis, trauma that we are all going to experience in life. And then it's about how do we get back? How do we find our way back to center? So if center is well-being, we're going to be pushed off center many times in life. We're going to get laid off. Our company's going to, go belly up. The economy's going to tank. These things are all going to happen. And then it's about how do we view ourselves? What about our relationships? Who's got our back? Who's there for us? And who can we be there for? And then it's about, okay, so what am I going to do now that has meaning and a sense of purpose for me? And what am I grateful for? What do I still have, even though everything else is gone? What do I still have? You know, well, some poignant stories around that are when people. I had a colleague, a work colleague, who had a fire in her house and just lost everything. The whole house burnt to the ground. Nothing but the clothes on her back and the car that she was in at the time. No one was hurt, but you know, those are the times, you know, when you know you really have to look at what you've got, and you know you've got your life in that situation, right? I didn't die. And so, you know, what am I going to do now? How do I start over? How do I pick up and realize that stuff is just stuff. It's material things, and that's not it. That's not where we get our well-being from. We get our well-being from the four things that we keep talking about, not the new car or the big screen or all these things that you know our society teaches us that that's the way to well-being. If I just had a bigger screen, I'd be happy.
Don't miss our sale. Bigger screens coming next week. And I think that, you know, I think we both agree that our approach is create your own big screen. You know, widen your perspective. It is about that open mindset versus a closed mindset with regard to what we encounter in life.
Yes.
And I think you've articulated that really well. I mean, people do face daunting circumstances where their house is burnt down, or whether you know, a tornado has run through town. And there's those countless stories of people being grateful to still be vertical.
Yes.
And recognizing that they've taken a blow, but the movement is going to be forward, and they have the capacity to move forward.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to the idea of the frames, Kim. It reminds me of an exercise that we do in training where we actually talk about those frames that people are looking through, and what are the frames made up? Well, the frames are made up of assumptions and beliefs that we have about the world. And when we really look at those beliefs and we start to realize that what we believe determines our well-being. And when we start to recognize and acknowledge that those beliefs came from somewhere, and then the idea is, you know, are these beliefs serving us? Do they help us in our lives, or are they actually limiting or hindering us from achieving our goals and doing what we want to do and having that sense of well-being? And the also, Kim, the idea that the majority of beliefs that are handed to us are made up. They're not real. They're presented to us as some objective reality, you know, and we tend to believe our parents. So if our parents tells us that's the way it is, then that's what we tend to believe, unquestioningly. And maybe it's time to question those beliefs. You know,
absolutely. It's not every time the time to question beliefs, right? Is my belief fuel, or is it a brake? Is it putting the brakes on, or is it filling my tank? I mean, you know, just having that picture in my mind is it serving me well? Is it serving those around me well? If not, what adjustments can I make?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kim. And of course, you know, we don't mean to simplify this. Life is complicated. And for those of you who don't have a sense of well-being, you know, we're not suggesting that any one of these things that we're mentioning is the answer for you. And it's complicated. And however, we do encourage you to reach out. There's lots of help available. There's lots of people like Kim and I who are, you know, quite happy to take your email inquiry about, you know, why don't I have that sense of well-being, and really happy to even give you some time on the telephone at no cost to you, just to say, okay, so, you know, how could you be happier? And it's complicated, and it's individual, and it's unique to you. And so whereas we have some understanding of human behavior using the 15 competencies of the EQI model, published by Multi Health Systems, it's just not simple. It's not like you're going to take the EQI, figure out what's wrong, do some simple things and be happy. It's complicated. And it may involve many conversations. It may involve getting a good coach and just working through things. But really, that's about relationships, and that we know is a path to happiness and well-being, is relationships. So coming up to the end of our time here, Kim, what final thoughts do you have for folks on well-being?
Well, I think, Dave, you've actually just said it really well in terms of, it's a path. We're all on our own path through life, and those paths are intertwined with other people. And it's not, there's no end point to that journey. There is nothing simple about this. As I work on my own EI, I recognize that I am just a work in progress too. And I'm going to have setbacks. And I'll slide backwards with regards to some competencies. But again, the important part being that as I'm more aware of what those components of my emotional operating system are, the quicker I'm going to be able to address how to get out of whatever situation that I've ended up in. So again, in terms of a model, it's a great model of our emotional operating system, and it identifies the components and the competencies. And go easy on yourselves. Be easy on yourself. Recognize that you're in a place you don't want to be, and know that you have choice to move.
Yes. And well said, Kim. And I really like the idea that we're all on this journey together. We're traveling along a road, and the more we recognize the humanity in others, that everyone has their struggle, that everyone is after their own personal sense of well-being, and be there for someone just as you may expect them to be there for you. So once again, those four, if you want to have a greater sense of happiness and well-being, those four competencies, those four factors of the model that makes up the EQI model, are self-regard, and interpersonal relationships. Who has your back? And self-actualization. What are you doing with your life? What are you involved in? And does it have purpose and meaning, and really feed your soul and give you energy to be involved in those things? And finally, how are you looking at things? Do you have a gratitude practice? Do you make time every day to just say, wow, I am so blessed, so grateful, I have so much. And we in North America, wow, we just have so much to be thankful for, and kind of chokes me up, when I think about it.
Yeah.
We're just so privileged, and we have so much abundance around us. And how can we appreciate that and acknowledge that, and how can we share that with others who maybe don't have as much as we have? That's the point, and that's the way to well-being. And we just wish you all the best. You can get in touch with Kim or I anytime. I'm David at EITrainingCompany.com. Kim, Kim, at EITrainingCompany.com. We'd love to hear from you, hear your stories of EQ, and your trials and tribulations. And we're constantly trying to think up great new show topics for you, and programs that we can deliver to be resources for you, and to support you in whatever it is that you happen to be doing. So from beautiful Vancouver today, and from sunny Victoria. It looks sunny. Kim, is it sunny over in Victoria today?
Well, we have a bit of mixed cloud and sun today.
Yeah. Kim, I'm going to give you the last word, and I'm going to say to all of our viewers, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, folks. And again, if there are items that you would like to see us addressed in future broadcast series, let us know. Just shoot us a quick email, and we'll be happy to try and put something together that will meet your needs. by all means, take a stop at our website, eitrainingcompany.com, and take a look at the various services that we offer and the number of people that we've worked with through the years. Thanks for joining us on this series. Bye for now.